you so much, Paul. I think it's a great story and really enlightening to get kind of the brand owner's perspective of all the work that actually goes into designing a new product and new package as it relates to kind of end of life and creating next life solutions. So I've already introduced myself, so I'm not going to do that again. But what I'm going to be talking about is the top 15 packaging challenges and opportunities for recycling in a MRF. And it really, I think, will tie in with a lot of the themes that we talked about today, from Maria's presentation to Paul's presentation, and so on. So for those of you that are not familiar with PackNext, we are an initiative of PAC, the Packaging Consortium. We are a material neutral organization, which distinguishes us from other associations that are out there. And our vision is a world without packaging waste. And we do believe in an integrated waste management approach, prioritizing solutions that work towards a circular economy. And of course, keeping the economy in mind, our goal is to minimize system recovery costs while maximizing recycling rates and the value of recovered materials. So a little bit of kind of packaging optimization 101. Of course, there's the whole purpose of the package. And I kind of want to change the conversation because as a packaging industry, we're always defending ourselves. We're always playing defense. And we want to change the language. Like, what are the opportunities? Not so much the challenges, but what are the opportunities to look at? How can we play, a little bit of more of the offensive side of looking at how we can change the dialogue of understanding the value of packaging in the first place. So if we underpackage a product, we can actually see a higher negative environmental impact. And then, of course, the happy medium is looking at a balance between underpackaging and overpackaging, finding the optimum pack design. So from a brand owner's perspective, they have a lot of things to consider. And everyone always tries to say, package design, everybody should change it because it's, poorly designed and it should be designed for recycling. But it's more complicated than that because you need to find balance between consumer preferences and attitudes because a lot of consumers don't want a sustainable package and have to pay for it. So it can't compromise value, performance, or cost. And of course, the role of packaging itself is it has to win its shelf, has to communicate information, protect and preserve. In the terms of food, of course, extended shelf life, be convenient, safe to use. We've talked about the need for convenience, especially with millennials, and do all these wonderful things. So it's a lot, right? As we heard from Paul's presentation, a lot of work goes into thinking about how you're going to package your product. So the three examples on the bottom, we talked about the cucumber. So an unwrapped cucumber lasts on shelf an average of 3 days. Wrapped cucumber lasts on shelf for up to 14 days. Need for convenience is ongoing, and then the need for kind of more renewable resources in our kind of growing resource-restrained world as we get more populated. So just a quick origin study of how this report came about. We initially released our top 10 in December 2014, and as a result, Packaging Digest released an article, and the author of this article shared with us saying, what else are you guys doing? Because this was one of our most popular articles with over 2,000 page views. So we wanted to keep building those momentum, and we did that with our Packaging Innovation Gateway project. So more recently, as of April, we released what we call our top 15, and we wanted to actually create more recommendations. So instead of just saying, there's all this, bad packaging out there, what are we actually doing? What recommendations can we provide, and how can we highlight those opportunities? So this input came from over 30 members across the packaging value chain. So we have some members in the room. It came from municipalities. It came from brand owners. It came from MRF operators. It came from NGOs. So subject matters across the value chain. And we introduced 5 new packaging formats. And highlighting some of what Paula just mentioned about kind of the 4 key areas, instead of just saying it's a challenge, well, where is a challenge occurring? What are the impact areas? And we highlighted them into 4 buckets. We looked at packaging design. Is there areas that from our brand owners can actually have an impact on? Is there sorting technologies to help improve how it's actually being processed at the MRF level? What are the current end markets and end market value that we can help to increase? And then of course the consumer piece is there a need for better education out there to make this type of packaging more recyclable? So in the report, we look at what happens to material today, what is being done about it, looking at recommendations, highlighting, that's the thing, there's so much information out there. We're only one organization. There's so many different organizations like CPIA that are working on specific material types or packaging types to try to increase the recovery of that. So we want to highlight what's actually going on, and also acknowledging that it's a living document. We don't have all the answers. There might be changing scenarios, and we're always welcome to feedback. So this report's actually $49. The initial top 10 report is free, but I'm here to sum it up for you, and if you want more, you can get that information at pac.ca. So number one on the list is multi-layer laminates. As we heard from Maria earlier, a lot of increased demand for lightweight materials. So we're seeing more of this type of packaging in the marketplace. And from that actual packaging performance standpoint, it's great because provides reclosability features, it helps to extend shelf life, etc. But we know that there's no end of life. So what I actually want to highlight is the packaging types with the little two kind of crosses are where we've seen the most development in the past couple years. So in this area, we've seen the material recovery for the Future project, which is looking at sorting technologies. There's a Reflex UK project, which is happening in Europe. A lot of great work that's going on. With PacNext itself, we have our multi-layer laminates group that are looking at reprocessor trials. So end markets such as construction lumber, things like that. So other alternatives than landfill. The next one is compostable plastic. And not surprisingly, there's still so much confusion with bio-based plastic and what it means, whether it's compostable or recyclable, because there's different varieties out there. So mainly like PLA, like polylactic acid, can be technically both compostable and recyclable. Of course, compostable depending on the capabilities of the organics processor. So again, a lot of confusion in this area, but ultimately, if we're looking at a circular economy approach, the priority would go to the recycled. But again, there's need for the end markets to be there. And of course, for end markets to be there, you have the value to make it worthwhile collecting in the first place. And because there's not significant volume, we always have that challenge. So the kind of key point here is, at least for the folks from PLA, saying, well, PET took about 25 years, it's been around to establish a strong market. So as we see a demand for renewable materials, this might change and it might evolve. And so we're waiting to see what will happen. For black plastic containers is really challenging from an optical sorting perspective at a MRF. Typically has to be manually sorted because the optical sorters can't detect the material from the belt. So a lot of new technologies are being developed, such as near-infrared technology, which is basically a different way of looking at the material, providing a material characterization test. There's various ones that are out there. More locally, here is T-Tech-S, actually believe based in Waterloo. And looking at trying to commercialize that material to actually build it into equipment. So we're seeing really neat stuff that's happening in this area. The full shrink wrap label also, there's different initiatives that are around. There's a full wrap label consortium, also with the Association of Plastics Recyclers in the US. They created some documentation on best practices, and also looking at different technologies, deseaming technologies, for example, to try to remove the labels so that the optical sorters can actually see the body material and not just the label material. Hot beverage poly-coated cups. We've heard it in the news just recently, a couple of days ago, with the City of Toronto. Again, everyone very passionate about it because everyone likes their convenience and everyone drinks a cup, and whereas they're buying it, they don't want to take responsibility for it because they want to pass on the responsibility waste to somebody else. So of course the onus is on the packaging industry and the people producing it to find a solution. And we see various trials that are going out there, and of course there's a lot of challenges. With mills, they need certain de-inking capabilities to be able to recycle it, but again, there's a lot of work that's being done, and we're trying to share these results with the folks that are involved. Metallized tubes, I won't go into too much detail. This is very similar to multi-layer laminates. Anytime there's metal, there's a company called Envel in the UK that their business model is actually extracting the aluminum using microwave-induced pyrolysis and retrieving the value from that aluminum. What's great is single-serve pods. Paul just touched upon it. Again, great work. The trial done in BC. We've also seen different formats that are appearing in the marketplace. There's a compostable pod that's being introduced by Club Coffee, and as well as the announcement from Keurig saying they are also trying to create a kind of a design for disassembly pod as well. Colored opaque PET is not so much that it's not recyclable, it's extremely of lesser value, making it that much more challenging for our MRFs to find homes for this material. So it's something to keep in mind, and we try to share that with our brand owner members so that they can hopefully pick another color or transparent to increase the value of that material. So non-PET clamshells, a lot of the challenges here are especially with regards to facilities where manual sorting exists. So we try to provide some guidelines around there. Corrugated tray with plastic film has to do with simply the separation and consumer engagement. You know, with belts moving very quickly, it's very hard to separate the two materials, and both the plastic film is recyclable material and the actual corrugated tray is recyclable, but the combination makes it very difficult, so we try to provide some education there. So the 5 new formats, caps on plastic bottles is a tricky one because across Canada at least we see various education that's out there. So one is empty and replace cap. We see take off the cap, throw in the garbage, and recycle the bottle. And then in some folks in BC, it's, okay, empty the contents, put the cap and the bottle in the garbage, in the recycling bin, but separated. So we try to share best practices of where we've seen the best success stories, and we do know that there's end markets for polypropylene caps. The next one is labels on PET thermoform. So when we increase PET thermoform recycling, there's still the challenge of the actual labels to kind of lowering the quality of recycled PET flake. So we try to share some of the best practices that are out there with trying to remove that label and with the inks not bleeding into the PET flake during the reprocessing process. Then there's glass jars and bottles, and this is a challenge, especially as more MRFs are moving into the single stream. So we do know that there are successful deposit programs that exist, and there's also kind of best practices when you're looking at how this materials flows through a single stream MRF. Plastic bags and films, common challenge. So here in Canada, we have seen some splits, so between depot collection systems and through curbside, and we've seen some challenges, especially as it flows through a MRF wrapping around some equipment. So we try to provide, again, some best practices, and there's some great reference material that's out there with how to better collect this material. And finally is polycoat containers. Again, it's very widely recyclable, and there's definitely practices that can help increase the recovery by sorting into its own grade. And so you can see more information there. So, bringing this kind of all together. So what does this mean as a process, and what are the research areas that we can work on? So with the Packaging Innovation Gateway, what we try to do is we welcome input from everyone that has a say. What's your subject matter field? So with any current modified or new packaging design, we try to review and looking at what's widely recyclable, no problem, to know, consider an alternate approach. But a lot of the times we get stuck with this maybe. This polystyrene plate is recyclable in peel, but isn't recyclable somewhere else. So what do we do with this maybe question? Well, we try to look at, what needs to be true to make this particular material recyclable or have higher, better value? So we look at, is it harmonizing material acceptance? Is it looking at alternative collection methods, MRF sorting technology, reprocessing solutions, developing end markets, partial redesign, communication and education. So those are kind of the bucket areas that we see where more research and data can help improve. And of course, more conversation and engagement with industry, government, academia. So as we move forward, there's always new packaging innovation that's entering the marketplace. And so we always have new kind of formats that we're seeing. So some of the questions we receive is like this one, what would the recycling impact be if from switching from PET to a talc-filled polypropylene tray or an OPS lid? Comparing metal versus plastic aerosol containers, and recycling impacts of using a full wrap label on a polypropylene tub. So in the report, we talk about more of like PET bottles. So we're always adapting and trying to use our current knowledge to adapt into new packaging formats. And again, providing a line of sight for MRFs to saying, this is kind of packaging that you might see flowing through your MRF sooner or later. So we try to provide that connection. So our next steps is Probably changing the dialogue. Let's look at these challenges as actually opportunities for improved recovery. And of course, increasing ongoing work between multiple stakeholders to identify opportunities for higher levels of recyclability, assessing short-term option for engineered fuel until recycling opportunities are developed, program consistency across jurisdictions to make education easier, resulting in better program performance. So, we see this especially in BC where they have more similar program acceptance, more widespread, creating more consistent communication and better improved recovery rates. And we're also not stuck on everything must go through curbside. So there's some brand owners saying, okay, we know that this isn't acceptable. Even if we do a small little take-back program, even if it's a small percentage being collected, it's a start. So we're always open to other options that are out there. So that concludes my presentation. Again, I'm open to any questions or thoughts. And of course, if anybody's engaged to hear more about getting that feedback, I know someone from Coca-Cola was interested in getting that feedback from other municipalities. We're always here to engage, bridge that connection between kind of brand owners and MRF operators and stakeholders throughout the packaging value chain. So thank you so much.